the heart of this nation, under skies so blue,
there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true.
from the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're diving deep into the heart of what we believe.
Okay, think about this. What happens when a city is already, dealing with a really serious crisis? It becomes the stage for a political protest, and then, this is the wild part, the very problem they're arguing about just explodes, like right nearby. Does that force people to rethink? Does it change the whole conversation? That's the kind of really intense, unexpected situation we're diving into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a look at different sources, pull out the key bits of information, and basically give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on a topic. So our mission today is to unpack one specific, pretty provocative article. It's from Red State. We want to give you a clear, impartial look at what the source is saying, its key points, any surprising details, and the particular story it's telling. Just to be clear, we're not here to agree or disagree, just to lay out what the article presented. And honestly, the title itself caught my eye. Left-wingers staged a protest against Trump's D.C. crime crackdown, and then something shocking happened. Came out just yesterday, August 11th, 2025. And yeah, I'm definitely curious about that shocking part already.
It's definitely a headline designed to grab you, yeah. And the article, well, it doesn't really hold back on delivering that drama. But before we even get to the shocking event, the piece carefully sets the stage. It details the background, the context for why President Trump intervened in D.C.'s local issues. Red State frames it as a response to what it describes as a series of high-profile murders and violent assaults happening in the city, incidents that, according to the article, had caught the attention of the president.
Right. So the article immediately frames this as like a necessary federal action because of a public safety emergency. And the way Red State tells it, the administration didn't just jump straight to federalization. They tried talking to the D.C. Council first.
That's exactly how Red State lays it out. It claims the administration initially asked the Democrat-laden city council to repeal some of its ineffective, harmful social justice policies that were letting criminals off the hook. Now, that phrasing itself, Democrat-laden, ineffective, harmful, it clearly signals the source's perspective, linking specific local policies directly to the crime issue they're highlighting. And then, crucially, the article states the council expectedly refused this request.
Expectedly refused.
Yeah. And according to Red State, that refusal is what directly led to the president's decision to federalize the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, the MPD. Essentially, taking federal control of the city's main police force.
Wow. Taking over a city's police department, especially D.C.'s, that sounds huge. You'd think there'd be immediate legal questions, right? How does the Red State piece handle the legality of it?
It's pretty assertive on that front. The article states this move is unquestionably allowed under the Home Rule Act of 1973.
Okay, the Home Rule Act.
Right. And that act is really key to how D.C. is governed. It gave the city some self-governance and elected mayor and council, but, and this is the important part according to the article, it kept ultimate authority with Congress. So Red State's interpretation really emphasizes this, arguing that D.C. being a federal district means the federal government has the final say, including, in their view, clear authority over the police. They present it as a solid legal footing for what the president did.
Makes sense from their perspective, at least.
Yeah.
And obviously something this big, a federal takeover of a local institution, it's going to cause a major stir. How does the article describe the reaction from people who opposed it?
Well, the article talks about mass consternation from the left. It points to a flood of accusations, words like fascism, claims that democracy itself was under threat. What's really noticeable is the very vivid language the source uses to describe this reaction. It says these accusations flowed like milk and honey.
Flowed like milk and honey.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. That's certainly a way to put it. Kind of pointed, almost poetic, for describing political backlash. It paints a picture, doesn't it? Intense opposition.
It definitely does. And Red State then uses that to argue why this reaction was, in its view, totally predictable. The article really leans into D.C.'s political identity, calling it the most liberal major city in the country. And the specific proof point they offer, Kamala Harris getting 90% of the vote there in 2024.
90%, yeah.
So that framing is important for their narrative. It suggests that in this city, pushback against the president's action wasn't just likely, it was basically guaranteed.
Okay, so with that political climate set up by the source, protests were pretty much inevitable, according to them. What does Red State actually say about the protest itself? Like, who was there? When and where did it happen? What was the core message?
Right, so the article identifies the protesters as angry left-wingers. It says they protested on Monday, August 11th, 2025, which, interestingly, is the same day the article was published.
Okay. Very current.
It's very current. The protest apparently started in DuPont Circle, marched down Massachusetts Avenue, and was heading towards 14th Street NW. And the message, according to the source, was pretty blunt. They saw a banner that read, "Trump must go now."
Interesting. And then the article seems to make a point, not just about the message, but about where in D.C. this protest took place. It feels like the source is drawing a specific conclusion from the location itself.
It absolutely is. This is where Red State adds quite a bit of commentary. It observes that Northwest D.C., where the protest marched, is, and this is a direct quote, where most of the white bread NIMBYs live.
White bread NIMBYs, okay. NIMBY meaning not in my backyard.
Exactly. A term often used, sometimes critically, for people seen as supporting progressive ideas generally, but maybe opposing things that affect their own neighborhood directly. And white bread is, well, a cultural descriptor the source chose to use. Then the article adds that this area is generally considered the safest quadrant of the city.
Right. So the source is setting up this contrast.
Right.
The location, the demographic profile it assigns to the protesters versus the actual problem crime, which might be more prevalent elsewhere. What's the irony they point out?
Well, the article explicitly calls it an irony. It says, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, that the people who are supposedly less likely to be victims of violent crime are the ones protesting the president for trying to stop violent crime in the areas where it's a bigger problem. It's a very pointed observation from the source, suggesting a disconnect, as they see it, between the protesters' immediate reality and the citywide issues being debated.
And this is where we get to the main event, the shocking part from the headline, right? The article implies something really dramatic and coincidental happened right when this protest was going on, something that highlighted the very issue.
Precisely. The article builds to this core, shocking event, saying it happened at the very moment they were marching. It reports that just a few blocks away in Logan Circle, a person was, presumably, murdered. The word presumably is in the source, likely because official confirmation might have been pending at the exact moment of writing.
Wow, okay.
And it gives very specific details cited from, likely, initial police or emergency reports. Person has been shot and left unconscious and not breathing. Shooting happened near Logan Circle area, 12th NW in Washington, D.C. The timing and the closeness of this awful incident to the protest route are absolutely central to the article's main thrust.
Yeah, that's incredibly specific. And like you said, the timing, as Red State presents it, is almost unbelievable, given the protest's focus. So the article really doubles down on the irony here. It sounds like they present this as almost proof.
They do. The source's reaction is direct and forms the sort of climax of their argument. It explicitly says, and this is a direct quote from the piece, Democrats staged a protest to demand Trump's resignation over his push to make D.C. safer, and they couldn't even finish their march before a murder happened right next to them.
Right next to them.
Yeah. And while the article does briefly acknowledge the tragedy, that a human being is dead, it immediately pivots back saying the irony can't be ignored. So Red State clearly uses this terrible event as powerful real-time evidence against the protest's message, or at least against what it sees as the prevailing local approach to crime. It's a stark way to use a tragedy to make a political point.
Wow. Okay, so Red State leverages this incident, this really tragic and immediate juxtaposition, to reinforce its overall argument about D.C.'s crime problem and also to criticize the city council.
Exactly. The article wraps up with a pretty strong assertion about crime in D.C., stating, D.C. has a huge problem, and all the manipulation of data in the world isn't changing. It then suggests, from its perspective, a kind of fundamental misalignment of priorities. It says it's shameful that the city council and so many residents of the city seem to care more about opposing Trump than stopping people from being murdered. So yeah, it presents this murder not just as an isolated tragedy, but as a vivid, almost instantaneous illustration of its central argument about the city's challenges and the priorities, as it sees them, of some leaders and residents.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the key nuggets we pulled from this specific Red State article. First, there was the context. Trump's decision to federalize the D.C. police, which the source linked to high crime rates, and the city council refusing to change certain policies. Then, We talked about the protests against this move, described by the source as angry left-wingers marching in what the article called a safe part of D.C. And finally, the core of it, the shocking and ironic event, as framed by Red State. A presumed murder happening very close by almost simultaneously, which the source used to underscore the very safety crisis being debated. And just to reiterate, our goal here was to present Red State's account and how they framed these events.
Absolutely. And that framing is crucial here. This deep dive into the Red State piece really shows how one event, a protest, can be dramatically contrasted with another, a nearby tragedy, to really hammer home a specific viewpoint. The article uses that shocking coincidence, doesn't it, to not just highlight DC's crime issues, but also to critique what it sees as the wrong priorities from the protesters and the council. It's a potent example of how facts on the ground can be woven into a particular narrative, especially when things are politically charged.
Exactly. It really makes you think not just about what happened, but about the different ways sources choose to tell the story and how that shapes how we all understand things. You know, this deep dive, focusing just on this Red State article, it presents such a stark juxtaposition. It kind of leaves us with a bigger question, doesn't it? When a community is facing serious problems, like public safety, and people have such fundamentally different ideas about what to do, what does the story told around a moment like this tragic, coincidental actually reveal about everyone's underlying beliefs, both the people involved and maybe the outlets reporting it? It's definitely a powerful reminder that the story often isn't just in the events themselves, but very much in the telling.
In the heart of this nation, under skies so blue, there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true.